I talked to mayoral candidate Allan Domb this spring for NBC 10 at Issue. Our conversation took place the week Philadelphia's water was under close watch after a chemical spill. Now, when we talked, Philadelphia had declared that the water was safe, but its handling of that situation had drawn criticism, including from Domb. We start there. Let's start with something that has been in the news recently, what happened with the water situation in Philadelphia. I know that you were critical of how the current mayor handled that situation. If you are elected, what steps would you take specifically to prepare for the possibility of something like that happening again?
Well, first of all, this is all about leadership. And when things like this happen, you need the mayor of the city, our leader, to be front and center. It makes people comfortable. They see a familiar face. I remember when we had that terrible train accident in Port Richmond back in 2015, and I was not in government. I was just a regular citizen. But I remember 11 o'clock at night, I turned on the news, and there was Michael Nutter, our mayor, front and center, giving us the confidence that he had it under control. That was a terrible accident, terrible accident. But the mayor needs to be front and center, number one. Number two, what I would do now is I would have an investigation of what occurred. Why did this happen? Are there any penalties that should be incurred by whatever caused that leak? And then let's figure out to make sure it never happens again. That's really the long term, how to prevent this from ever happening, because that was kind of a disaster. We were getting text messages every couple of hours, no water, then you have water. It was kind of very bad communication.
And you were on city council. Did you know at the time whether the city had a water distribution plan in an emergency ready to go?
I did not know that.
Do you think you should have?
Maybe I should have known about it, but never asked the water department that time. They would only usually come to our meetings during budget hearings. We didn't hear from them that often. But, on council, we're doing legislation. That's really an administrative and an executive position as the mayor of the city. That's really their role to be doing that, not the council's role. I guess the council could inquire, have a hearing about it, but we never did that. And you would think that the mayor would have this under control.
So you obviously have been critical of Mayor Kenney. You are also responsible for the negative ads we are seeing against one of your opponents, Jeff Brown. Why did you decide to go negative there? And is that an indication you think he's your biggest competition?
For one major reason. Whoever the mayor is, we want a mayor who's going to tell the truth. And it was clear from the publications in the Inquirer and other publications, it came out that the Obamas, for example, did not endorse Jeff Brown. Even though the ads led people to believe that, they did not, and they asked them actually to take it down, and it took a while for them to take it down. And so my goal is whoever is the mayor, hopefully it'll be me, but whoever is the mayor, we need a mayor that tells the truth.
Do you think those ads will help you?
I think it'll help me maybe a little. I think it'll help other people too. But I didn't run them for that reason. I ran them because I want a mayor who tells the truth. I only care about the city. That's my first love. Look, I came here with nothing. I was making $15,000 a year back in '76 when I came here. The city was unbelievably good to me, unbelievably good to me. And all I'm doing is I want to give back to the city I love. And we're in a crisis. We have a public safety crisis. We have a good paying jobs crisis. We have an education crisis, a poverty crisis. We need strong leadership because leadership can solve all these problems.
Let's talk about the issue of violence. I know you've said that that is the top issue in the city. On the ballot in May, in addition to the mayoral candidates and the city council candidates, will be a question for voters about whether they want a chief public safety director. Do you want that to pass? Do you want a chief public safety director in your cabinet if you're mayor?
I would say as the mayor's job is also overseeing public safety. That's number one. So I would probably appoint somebody myself to help me with public safety in the cabinet.
Well, the mayor would appoint this person if it passes.
Right, but it has to be subject to council's approval. I think the mayor should have that control. That is the executive branch. So I would say I would not be in favor of it. I've actually looked into it and thought that I would have a public safety cabinet, which I've already formed while I was on council.
So you think voters should vote no on that? You don't want
I do think they should vote no.
Okay.
Yes, to answer you directly. But I will say this. I will have a public safety cabinet day one consisting of the police commissioner, the DA, the U.S. Attorney General's office, FBI, ATF, courts, PATCO and SEPTA security, and EDS and Med security. I will conduct the meetings myself on a weekly basis, whether it takes an hour or 5 hours, until we get this under control every week. It is the most important issue for the citizens of this city to get our public safety under control.
You have a public safety plan, but not everything on there the mayor has full control over there. For example, one of the things you talk about is cracking down on retail theft. Well, that's up to the district attorney. So how would you crack down on retail theft as the mayor?
So I would first work with our DA, and I have worked with him in the past. He was part of a public safety group that I organized when I was on council, and I feel I could work with him. But if it came to a point where I could not crack down on retail theft, I would seek to go outside to the Attorney General's office. I would ask for help from our governor, Josh Shapiro, who I think is a tremendous governor and will be happy to help the city of Philadelphia. And I would connect in with not just the state level, but also connect in with the federal level on the illegal gun violations. You know, in the city, illegal gun violations have a much lower sentence. I think it's like 6 months. I think on the U.S. attorney's situation, when it goes to a federal level, it becomes 6 years. So there's more teeth, I think, when you can go outside to the state and the federal levels, but we need cooperation from all. That's why I would have these meetings with the DA, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the Attorney General, so we can work together as a team. Right now, we're working in silos. That does not work. We need to bring people together to get the best results.
Let's stay on the issue of the district attorney for a moment. You have said that you don't agree with the impeachment process that was going on in Harrisburg because he was elected by the voters of Philadelphia. But you do have some issues with the way he has done his job, and your ethics plan calls for having a way to recall the district attorney. So are you saying that if people elect you mayor, you're going to give them a way to recall the district attorney?
No, what I think should be in place is a recall method for any office versus allowing Erie, Pennsylvania to tell us who should be in Philadelphia.
But you talked about it specifically regarding the district attorney.
If it's the district attorney, yes, then we should have a recall method, not what they were talking about now. That's totally not right to allow other parts of our state to dictate who's going to be in Philadelphia. Philadelphians elected our district attorney. And if Philadelphians have made the decision that they don't want the district attorney, then that would be a recall election. But again, let me be really clear. I will try and work with him first. I think I can work with him. I have worked with him in the past. And I think if we bring everyone together, I think we can work collectively and collaboratively and solve the problem. I think our problem isn't as much the DA as it is the leadership of the city. The DA has some ideas, maybe not all of them everyone will agree with, but I think collaboratively we can come together. It's the leadership that's the issue.
You have said, you are known in this city, of course, as being a former city council member, but a lot of people may also know you because of your real estate, particularly in condos. And you have said that if you're elected, you have a system where you would sell that business to your son.
Yes.
Although you would still be making decisions that could financially impact your family. So how would that work, and how would you prevent a conflict or a benefit to your family from decisions you're making?
It's a great question, but number one, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, asked Claire Finkelstein, a professor and an attorney there, to set up my ethics plan. And as the gold standard, as Claire says, she did the ethics plan for President Biden. It is a gold standard ethics plan that is above the city requirements. It's based on a federal level. It's way above. So I would totally abdicate anything of any of my holdings. My son would take over with other people, and I would not be involved at all. But at this point or stage of my life, if I really wanted to advance myself, I wouldn't be going into government. I'd be staying in the private sector. My goal right now is to help the city. And I live by this quote from Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And at this point in my life, the city has been unbelievably good to me, really good. And all I want to do is help the city and give back.
What would you do after your term or terms as mayor? Would you buy back the business?
I don't think that's a possibility, number one. Okay, and number two, I'd probably have to find something else to do. But at that point, I'm not sure I'll continue working. Maybe I'll work for a nonprofit. I haven't really thought about that because that could be 4 or 8 years from now.
All right, Allan Domb, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I also spoke with Allan Domb as he released his plan for city services. Here's that conversation. How are you approaching this in terms of how to prioritize things?
Well, let me first mention that in the city of Philadelphia, in the last 8 years, our budget has gone up 50%. It's gone from $4 billion to $6 billion, and yet the city's services are worse. I mean, that's kind of unacceptable. I hear from people every day, angry Philadelphians who say, my street's not clean, there's potholes all over the place, street lights are broken, like even the vacant lots that have tons of trash on them, are a real danger in these neighborhoods. I mean, this is really all about leadership. It's all about leadership. And so, as mayor, this plan that I'm putting forth, I'll make sure we clean the streets, we fix the potholes, we repair the broken street lights, we manage the finances, we make sure we provide public safety for every citizen in every neighborhood across the city. And I'm releasing the city services plan today because public safety is our #1 issue, but the cleanliness of the city is very important in providing better public safety. So this plan is to make sure Philadelphia gets back on track, and I believe this is all about leadership, because we can handle these issues through good management.
You know, what do you say to people though who say when trash was on the street, when there were potholes, when 911 took too long? You were on city council, so you were part of the government. What do you say to people who say, hey, you were part of this government that wasn't getting stuff done?
Absolutely. Well, there's 3 branches of government: judicial, administrative, and legislative. We can legislate on city council everything. I've had a lot of bills I legislated that the administration never carried out. I mean, think about that. We don't have the power to carry out the bills, and that's why I'm running for mayor. I need the ability to have the leadership to carry out the things on council that I passed and others, so we can make this city better. We don't have that power on council.
You talked about how the city, the funds that the city has have increased, and you don't necessarily think that they were used in the best way. So where are you going to get the money to do the things that you want to do? Where are you going to take that money from?
Well, I think you have to look at the whole budget. Our budget increased dramatically from $4 billion to $6 billion. And again, I don't think the city services we're providing today are better than they were in 2015. So we have to look at every department and determine what's working, what's not working. A great example is I put in a resolution to analyze the $200 million of violence prevention programs. This was over a year ago, asking our academic institutions to analyze which of these programs are saving lives and which ones are not. Imagine we invested $200 million. And I asked the mayor to analyze this to our academic institutions like Community College, St. Joe's, Temple, Drexel, and Penn. We still haven't done that. Who invests $200 million in programs for violence prevention and doesn't measure it? This is about management, this is about leadership, this is about accountability. We have so much in tax dollars coming in, we don't necessarily need more money. We need to manage the money we have much more efficiently and effectively.
Is there somewhere that you can point to right now that you would shift money from to pay for some of these services and invest in that instead?
Well, I can share 2 things I did on council. When I ran in 2015, our delinquency collection rate was 89%. We didn't collect 11% of our real estate taxes. Most of those delinquencies were out-of-state landlords. I work with our revenue department, Frank Breslin, who does a great job, and we put in a program called sequestration, where we go after the delinquent landlord's tenants, and we send them a notice like on the 1st of the month, please send your rent to the city of Philadelphia. And in 2019, the collection rate went from 89% to 96%, bringing in an extra $120 million a year. And then I suggested to the city that we hire an outside commercial appraisal firm for commercial properties. We hired the firm. We found another $120 million. I mean, I can keep going on. There's so much waste in the government. I believe if we really delve into it and hold people accountable, we can find the money.
And some of this isn't just about finding money. It may also be about finding people. You're talking about keeping pools open throughout the summer, keeping libraries open 7 days a week. Where are you going to find the people, the staff, to make that happen?
Well, first of all, we have to start recruiting for our lifeguards. We should have been recruiting in January. We could have programs, for example, even in our seniors in high school or a community college to recruit people to become lifeguards. We need to start thinking about our schools as training centers. For example, we need police officers. We should have 2 or 3 high schools dedicated to public safety, where we train kids from 9th to 12th grade how to be police officers, how to be firefighters, how to be EMT. Now, firefighters and EMT, at 18, you can get a job. Police officers, you'd have to become a cadet. For ages 18 and 19, at 20, you become a police officer. We should start training our own for the positions, including the building trades. We should have 3 or 4 high schools dedicated to the building trades, where we have people learning from 9th to 12th grade steam fitting, plumbers, sheet metal workers, electricians, carpenters, and engage and work with the building trades, bringing in maybe some of the people who've retired who have tremendous institutional knowledge to help train our students from 9th to 12th grade how to go into these trades with one guarantee from the building trades is that they get a job and they're hired when they graduate into a good paying job. We need to start using our high schools as training grounds for jobs, including licensing and inspection. Maybe we have a track for teachers. This is being done in Europe. We need to do it here. We need to stop saying, hey, these kids aren't trained. We need to train them for these great jobs.
And that, that will work long term, but that first summer comes along and people want those pools open. What do you do the first year where you don't necessarily have that, that pathway set up yet?
So I think you could probably go to community college or other colleges in our city and recruit people to become lifeguards. We could offer them some bonuses. I can probably reach out to private companies and ask them to help sponsor some of the pools. I think many companies in our city would love to sponsor lifeguards at a pool for the summer. There's many companies that love to help kids, and I think that's easy to do. I don't think that's hard. It's the effort and the work of the mayor of the city picking up the phone and asking the private sector to chip in and help.
Couple just specific things on some of the specific things in your plan. One of them is 911 response times. You want to get those down. How do you do that?
I think you need better training. We need more staff, but a lot of it is better training. Across the board, we need better training, and we need hospitality training. In the city of Philadelphia, I said this in council, we, as mayor, I will ask us and require us to answer the phones. Thank you for calling the city of Philadelphia. How may we help you? It is all about hospitality. And so it's training and training and training. And when people are trained more, I'm happy to give them higher wages because I'd always rather have a higher trained workforce and pay them more than in the reverse.
And you've talked about street cleaning as well. As you know, in Philadelphia, moving the cars is sometimes an issue. What do you do about that? People got to move the cars?
We have a lot of abandoned cars. First, they'd have to be...
No, I'm talking about people moving their own cars.
Oh, well, they have to move the cars for street cleaning. Okay. We have to keep the streets clean. It's a public safety issue. We have to clean the streets. My grandmother used to say to me, cleanliness is next to godliness. We have to keep the city cleaner. And I would say this, when I'm mayor on day one, I'm going to ask every citizen in the city to help me. We can't do this on our own. We need their help. I'm going to ask everyone, which I do, pick up at least one piece of trash every day. Make it your civic pride. Pick up one piece of trash. If you can pick up more, that's phenomenal. But let's all have pride in our city. It's so important.
And as you look at who the next mayor will be serving with these city services, what's your expectation for what this city will look like? Do you expect that this will be a city where population is growing in the next few years or shrinking?
When I'm mayor, the city will explode with population, economic activity. That's been my whole life. I'm all about growing the base, growing the city, creating more opportunity. The best way to take people out of poverty is a good paying job. My goal is not to keep people in poverty and make them comfortable. My goal is to take people out of poverty, and that's with good paying jobs and training. We have a lot of opportunity here. We have some of the highest poverty rates in the country. That's because we haven't trained people for the jobs that are available in today's economy and tomorrow's economy.
That was mayoral candidate Allan Domb. You can see more of our coverage of the mayoral race on NBC10.com.